Hello and welcome to the Tournament Poker Project, all the way from Essex. My name's Jon.
And I am Tain.
Also from Essex. And we are two recreational players on our journey to become experts in the field of poker. We are not quite there yet. We're not professionals, so anything we are talking about isn't to be taken as definitive advice. We're just learning, and we want you to come and learn with us. So listen in, leave a message, and let's get going. Should we jump straight into a hand today, Tain?
Yeah, I'm good to get straight in. I mean, just quickly, have you had much success lately?
Well, I played last night, hence me wanting a pretty quick straight in. I'm absolutely tired and need to go to bed. Yeah, I played last night at Asper's in Stratford. It was the 50 plus 10 unlimited re-entry tournament. I think we had about 70 runners, and there were some re-entries as well. So a nice prize pot of somewhere around 4.5k. And yeah, I placed 10th, so just squeaked into the money. It was actually technically the bubble, but when we had 10 left, we didn't want to do the hand for hand play because we had 5 left on each table, and they said because it's the bubble, we have to do hand for hand play. It was going incredibly slow. One of the dealers actually was really particularly slow. It's his first day. He was learning, so it was like, oh my god, like this is not a good time to do hand for hand. Everyone's tired and just wants to get to the final table. So we all said, look, let's take 30 off the top, 20 off a second, 10 off a third, make a prize for 10th place. Then we don't have to do hand for hand because we're already in the money. And that did speed things up. But unfortunately, it sped them up in the way that I went out in 10th place. Not that I started doing anything differently. It just so happened like that. I was one of 3 short stacks at the table, or shorter stacks. We wasn't desperately low, but it was pretty much push fold. I kept going between that push fold and then actually I can raise, or not just shove constantly, but then within a couple of all bits you're back just in that push fold stack depth. And yeah, so it was kind of up and down. I was battling, shall we say, but I was really happy with my play. There was I told you about a big hero call where got jammed on the river for all my chips, and I called with just ace high because the betting just didn't make sense, and it just felt like I was ahead, and I was. So that's completely stupid or genius, you decide. But yeah, no, really happy with the game. But yeah, as I always say, full-time job, getting in at 3 a.m, wired from a great game of poker, and getting up at 7 when the kids wake you up is pretty tough.
Nice. Cool.
But this hand I wanted to talk about is actually from an online game. Really big field. I think it was about 1,700 runners, $11 entry. I think actually this particular one, I just had the one bullet. I'd only entered once and then went deep with it. Usually I'm firing a bullet or 2 extra, so I was pretty happy with that. But we're 8-handed. We're pretty deep into the tournament now. There's some quite varying stack depths at the table because it's such a big field. So you've got people on 20, 30,000, and you've got others on 80, 100,000. Yeah. So do you want to talk through it, and then I'll talk you through me thoughts on the different spots.
So yeah, you've gone through some of the stacks. Our hero, Jon, is sitting in the big blind, so we have got just under 30k. So we're sitting with about 9.5 big blinds. So the blinds are, I'm looking at one of the raises, excuse me. So blinds are 500, 1,000. So we're sitting there with a nice 28 big blind stack, and we're on the button. The big stack at the table is sitting on the hijack, and the action begins. So under the gun folds, then under the gun +1 raises 3 times big blind, standard open. I mean, that's a little big for me, but standard open. Then we've got a fold from the low jack. Then the big stack, Mr. Hijack, calls. So a little limp behind there. Then we've got folds all the way around to the small blind, and now it's sitting with us on the big blind, 2,000 to call into a pot of 8,375, and we look down at King 9 offsuit, King of Diamonds, 9 of Hearts.
And it's just to comment on you saying there's quite a big open. I agree. I think the under the gun +1s actually, I think that should be a bit at these stack depths. It might start going a bit smaller than 3 big blinds anyway. But, and I don't know if he's definitely right, but the latest I've been reading on it is you should be opening a smaller multiple of the big blind when you're in an earlier position. So I'd have probably opened to sort of 2,200, even as low as that from under the gun +1. So yeah, 3,000 did seem a little bit big.
Yeah, my standard open is 2.1, so it would have been 2,100 from early position. I'd probably maintain that all the way around to the hijack. Then I'll bump it up to about 2.6, and then only on the button possibly, but I definitely out the small blinds, put it up to about 2.5, 3. Depends how I feel, how the players are playing. But yeah, but then it's not necessarily a mistake that they've raised it to 3, because they might be responding to other table dynamics. They might be trying to get the person who has called out the hand. It could be the opposite. They might think, well, I've got aces and the big blind is going to be calling anyway. Sorry, not the big blind, the big stack's going to call anyway. Let's get some extra chips in to at least make it unprofitable for them. Or as unprofitable as possible for their position. But the other thing is that it should impact your opening range, because they're early and there has been a call from a moderately early position.
Yeah.
Then you need to defend much less. So at GTO, I think you're defending 60 to 80% of hands, somewhere around there. With this kind of bigger open and a call, down to 20%. Now, whether King 9 off comes into that is what we need to consider. What's the effective stack? Effective stack's is you. So we're looking at 30k stack. I mean, for me, it's probably sitting somewhere around my range. It is at the bottom of my range, but that's not necessarily a problem. The only thing I'd be thinking is kings are so heavy in both of their ranges.
Yeah, definitely. It is a worry of if either of them do hold a king, we've probably got the worst one. Exactly. Except for some of the suited kings they might hold,
So I'm trying to. I mean, the most I would be doing is calling.
Yeah.
Because you're getting a discounted price. This isn't a free betting hand because it just doesn't hold up to any. Well, is it a free bet and fold?
No, I mean, no. I think you're right, but it's even less of a free bet hand when you've got another caller in front of you. You've now got 2 people in the pot, an early position open, and a hijack flat call. 3 betting here is extremely risky. You could get 4 bet on or I mean, you could say it is territory for a squeeze, but you've got to be ready to get all your chips in, because if you 3 bet this, you're going to be putting in 10k.
Yeah, with the flat call. Out of position as well. Yeah, so it's go for the bigger size.
Yeah, and then that's a third of your stack. What are you going to fold that to a 4 bet? It's risky. It felt like a call to me.
Yeah. So just to put in a bit of cheating per se, GTO in this position is a 50-50 split, call and fold.
Oh, really?
There is an anomaly of free bet that that's just probably a rounding error. 3% means nothing. So it's almost a lovely 50-50, 48.3% fold, 45.3% call. So a call is depends how you feel. So if you're feeling confident and the play is going that your opponents are a bit weaker, that pushes it much more into a pure call, sorry. So yeah. So we do call. We get to a flop. We have just over 10,000 in the pot, and the flop comes out Jack of clubs, 5 of spades, King of clubs. So there's a club drawer out there.
I'd like to draw your attention as well to the SPR at this point. So we are the effective stack with 26,000 left behind and just over 10 in the pot. We've got an SPR of about 2.5.
Yeah. And we've hit top pair. So we've not got any part of the club draw that exists. It is there. And we've got top pair. My instant go-to is that this is a pure check with range in this position, given the pre-flop aggression came from elsewhere and the big stack and who called it is also elsewhere. The fact that King Jack is in a good part of their ranges.
Yeah.
The under the gun opener has got both Kings, Jacks, probably 5s as well in their range. You definitely do not have them. In the middle position player, the hijack, possibly. They shouldn't have Kings. Jacks, I'm not overly sure. They definitely do have 5s in their range, as you know, to play the nuts. But range advantage definitely sits elsewhere here. So for me, my thought process would be going straight towards a check raise. And if it's checked behind, then I've got a lot of thinking to do. Yeah, because it's going to be very heavy on the turn. But my gut feeling is check with range. Hopefully there's an opportunity to check raise. If it goes early position under the gun, the pre-flop aggressor, if they raise and then there's a re-raise, or even just a call, again, I'd have to reevaluate.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I'd have to assume we're out kicked. I can't imagine there being a raise from early position, continuation bet, and a call without one of them having a king. And because our kicker's bottom of range, their range is just as tight, if not tighter. You've got to assume that we're bad.
So SPR being 2.6, usually that would say, look, top pair, you got to get it, you got to get all your chips in. But that surely changes when you have 2 opponents in the hand with you on the flop. You surely would have to have a stronger hand to be going in with, or at least a really good kicker with the top pair, I would say. So if it was heads up on the flop, a single raise pot, then top pair with probably any kicker is get all your chips in when it's 2.5 SPR. When there's 2 opponents, this is where it feels a bit more borderline. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd look at the SPR as kind of being manipulated by the extra person. So if you imagine this was a heads up pot, the pot would actually only be about 7,000. So you'd have a much bigger SPR. So the extra person doesn't discount that for you getting it all in because, as you said, their presence means you're much less likely to have a good hand. So
yeah,
as much as SPR is still important, I think it needs to be lower than 2.5 for it to start being it's just jam with the rest of it. Anyway, so we've got the top pair. We do check. It goes to under the gun, and they raise pot. They go
massive,
bung it in.
I mean, you usually you're going small on the bet size when you're in a multi-way pot, and this guy's gone pot. Now there are 2 clubs on the board, but pot. I mean, if he did have King Jack, why would he go pot? He's you're going to get more folds, and yes, someone one of the other 2 opponents might have 2 clubs that you're trying to protect against, but that's still relatively small compared to all the hands that you're beating that might come along with a smaller bet. Half pot, it seems okay, but pot just seems huge. It's
Yeah,
a third of his stack. He's put 10 in. He's got 18 left. I mean, he's gone big with this.
I don't know. I don't know why they would do that and with what hands. I can't put them on much of a range for doing that.
Maybe he's bluffing with 2 clubs himself, or some kind of straight draw. There's straight draws, Queen 10, Ace Queen, Ace 10, all firmly within the under the guns range. I don't think Ace. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say none of them benefit from building the pot in this way that basically commits you to.
Yeah, it's a weird bet, unless he's just not really considering he's got 2 opponents and he's just trying to take it down. If it is a one of these semi bluffs or a high equity bluff, is that what you call it? High equity bluff.
Yeah.
If it's a high equity bluff, then maybe he's more hoping to get the folds, but he could make the nuts if the right card comes along.
Yeah, I mean, he can't imagine that bet size is gonna get folds, given the position it puts him in. So for those listening in, this bet raises the pot to 20,000, and it leaves the bettor with just 18,625 back. So they've put in over half their stack to hope that their 2 opponents, which have already shown strength by calling, that they're just going to fold on what is quite a nice, healthy board for most calling ranges. I mean, you in the big blinds, there's every chance you'll fold because you're going to have a bluff in there, but not much because of what I spoke about earlier. That your range, you don't need to be defending very much because it was a big size bet in the first place, as well as you got 2 people behind, 2 other callers. One other caller. So you need to tighten up even more. So kings and jacks, not the pair, sorry, but a king and a jack form many different combos within your hands.
Let's think as well that when you're c betting into 2 opponents on the flop, you don't need to bet as much because the defense is shared. Your defending range is shared between. Sorry, the amount you need to defend is shared between the other 2 people left in the pot. So they only need to defend with even stronger hands than if they were heads up with you in the pot. So that's why you can usually get away with c-betting a smaller amount into 2 opponents and getting the folds. So if he, it seems really big. It feels a little bit like, please go away, I just want this pot. that's what this c-bet looks like. It looks too big to be trying to get value. If you just hit 2 pair, or if you've got ace king even, why would you go quite so big? It's too big.
Yeah, it's when you've got some, say you've got a set of kings or a set of jacks, or even when you've got like the ace flush draw, you've got ace queen of clubs, which would be absolute answer. Your gut reaction isn't let's bet so big that everyone's likely to fold, or there is an opportunity for everyone to fold. You're normally thinking, I'm scared that I'm not going to get the value I want from this hand. And most people either get way too excited and just jam it all in, and then people fold and they think, I won a hand, even though they've missed out on value, or they try to be tricky and they try to slow play and they try to lure people into the pot with tiny bet. And and even if you go through the nuts, so they've got kings, they've got jacks for a set in this position, it's highly vulnerable. If they've got the flush draw, then it's not a made hands, and you don't really want to be building the pot that much. You just want to be showing aggression so that people, a king's not folding in this position, so you don't want to be fluffing the pot up massively when you've not got the best hand. So that's not your value target. See, there's no point in going this big because it's not going to get any more far than a quarter pot bet would achieve in the same situation. People with flush draws aren't folding. People with hit a king aren't folding. You want to put a decision to anyone who's got a jack, with maybe a half-ass kicker, and get them out the hands and deny them equity, but you're not denying equity to anyone else. A raggy king is the best I've got, really. That's all I can think. They just want to win the pot now. They've got top pair. It's highly vulnerable because it's got like a 4 kicker or something. Maybe the 4 clubs, just for a little extra, I think. But that's where I'm at. I feel it's.
Yeah, but I mean, I think GTO would say if you've got a top pair with a weaker kicker like that into 2 opponents, it might even be a check. Just try to get to the showdown or keep the pot a bit smaller. Just you still call. Obviously, you'd call down, keep people's bluffs in. Don't bet yourself. Wait for someone else to bluff at it and call it down to the river. Maybe all your chips will still go in, but at least then you're keeping bluffs in their range, which you'll always beat. So weird
don't
one.
Get me wrong,
but you can look at it.
That is what I think you should be doing, because weak kings and queens are the 2 main checking range hands that keep your checking range strong. So weak kings and pair of queens, maybe a pair of 10s that you want to keep in your checking range trying to get to showdown. Anyway, I think the thing we've not paid attention to is the call behind. So we get a raise just over 10,000 from the under the gun +1, the pre-flop aggressor, but the person who called behind them also calls this bet. They're not shying away. Now they are the big stack.
Flat calls it. I mean, what are you flat calling with here? He's the bigger stack. He's massively got hero and this under the gun villain covered, like really, really covered. In fact, if he goes all in against both of us and loses, he'll still have 50k in his stack. He's big. But what are you doing with that? You've got someone left to act after you. Is he flush drawing? Has he got just a bit of it himself, and he just wants to get some showdown?
I do possibly a flush draw, although possibly a flush draw. A straight draw certainly. A strong jack like ace jack.
Yeah,
like ace jack with the ace of clubs would be very much a call behind.
Yeah,
there is a lot to be said that you're the big blind, and he can see that it's been pot size raised and calls, and there's so much air in your hand at this point. Even though you're playing a much stronger range, it's also condensed and capped.
So you think maybe he's thinking, I'll call it because, all right, the hero here might have something he can call with, but he's more likely to not have something he can call with.
Well, yeah, if he's got a draw, he's assuming that the heroes. It's the. I can't think of any hands in that you could be holding that would feel really good about shoving in this position, other than as a semi bluff, because you haven't got kings and you haven't got jacks, and they do. So even if you've got a king, you could be smashing up against a set of jacks, and you're almost dead at that point. It's a real tough point. This is what I was saying about if it was just the under the gun person who raised, or even just the person in position, the big stack in the hijack who raised and the other person's folded, then I'd feel much better about a check raise. But in this position, I don't know. It's tough. This is a borderline decision. I do feel it's probably too good to fold, but your SPR, albeit with raises, is less than 1. So a call here might as well be a shove. So at least you've got a bit of fold equity available. They might both fold, and then you'd have to shove for value, wouldn't you? So you're not getting a fold from king, are you?
I think the question I remember having at this stage, because in my mind it was either call, which just like you say, it's almost what's the point, because the chips are going in by the end, and if you leave two of them in the hand by not shoving, then there's more chance of them drawing out. My question to myself was, would this big stack be flat calling if he had, say, King 10, King Queen?
Would they or should they? Should they? No, I feel that this would, given their stack, the pre-flop aggressor has the momentum, so they can see bet this with some of their draws to keep the aggression going, and they're going to get more folds than the other two of you from their bets, because they've shown the most aggression, and both of you have just called, so you've both capped your range to some degree. So they're allowed to throw their weight around. So they've got more, so draws are more likely. They're incentivized to bet a flush draw in this position to keep the aggression going, because they've also got the best hands in their range. But the hijack who calls behind doesn't have that advantage. Their range is capped. So what are they calling with? It must be a draw. Like, can they then just push? Can they expect to get pushed? Anyway, I think in this position, I don't know.
It's a tough one, isn't it? It's really, really tough. Look, at the end of the day, we can't fold. Can we fold? Can you? If we're going to call and defend with King 9, and then we hit our king, and we end up having top pair of a 9 kicker with some suspicious large C bet from the original opener under the gun there, and a kind of weak, I want to see a showdown maybe call from the hijack caller with a big stack. Folding just seems nuts. If we're going to fold here, then what the hell are we going to call with? We've hit this flop surely hard enough to continue. Yes, it's not ideal. We've got two opponents. We're going to have to. I think we're going to have to jam this to maybe get one of them out. And
I think I've settled on not jamming. Yeah. My reasoning is that, albeit you're putting in over half your stack, you would have put in over half your stack. If you do call this, you do get to evaluate, and you do get to act first on the next street. So, for instance, if the ace of clubs comes, you've probably saved yourself the other 16,000 in your stack, and that's a good thing to be able to do. You get to call this any action, make the first action on the next street, and if, say, next card that comes down is like the 7 of diamonds, jam that, and then you can jam with a lot more abandon. I feel that would be the best action. So pay up your 10,000 because you've got top pair. See how risky the next card is, because if we're even thinking of folding in this situation anyway, even though that's an unlikely thing, we don't want to do that, and we think it's the wrong move. The fact it even exists in the conversation means that a bad card on the next street puts that to bed. It's the best situation we can be in is both of these players are playing draws or the weaker part of the board. The chances of them having a 5 is fanciful, and they can't both have they can both have a jack, but again, its chances are getting a bit lower. And then what part of that jack are they playing? Because if they're playing queen jack, ace jack, then any 10, any queen, any ace makes that really, makes it impossible to play the next street anyway. Again, it's the worst situation to be in. So evaluate anything under 9 that's not a club. We jamboree, I'd say. with a
Okay.
bit more information. That's how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So
Okay. No, I really like your thinking there. So in the game, I do actually opt to slam the rest of my stack in. That's what happens there. So I do jam. And I'm glad we've spoke about this because, yeah, I don't hate the jam. It just feels like I can't fold. I could call and go with your route that you were saying there, or jam. And I think my thinking is, let's maybe get someone out of this hand. If they're both drawing, do I really want two different types of draw that could then beat me? You know, there's twice as much chance potentially of those draws coming in, except of course on the off chance they're both got straight draws, different parts of it, and they block each other's straights. So actually thinking about that, maybe I didn't want to get them both out, and that airs more on calling and doing your route, because then you're keeping both of them in. Maybe that's the way to get more chips. So I still don't know if this is right or wrong, but I jammed anyway.
and then we get a call from the pre-flop aggressor, which was under the gun +1, and the big stack folds, which is delicious.
I wonder what
They were playing Jack 10 or something.
Jack 10. It's got to be in it. He's like, he can't fold it. He's got to carry on, but he's not really looked at the stack sizes enough. You can't, you know, he's going to end up with all his chips in, if you know. Sorry, not all of his chips, but he's going to end up. He may as well, if he's going to play it, he may as well just jam. And
the pot at this stage where they've folded is 75,000, and they've purely got, because I've just seen under the gun +1 has just called. They've not even jammed themselves. They've just left themselves with 2,300 in their stack, with the person behind still to act. I don't know what they're doing. I've really lost the plot with what their actions are. They've done too big a rate open. Donks. Well, not donks.
I wonder if this villain here that's opened from early position, that's bet pot against two opponents on the flop, has then called basically all of his chips in. I don't know. And
it's the best possible outcome, I'd say, because
it's kind of good, isn't it?
Now they've done this, they're most likely to have absolute trash. King 4 offsuit, that kind of thing.
That would be great.
I was more worried about the big stack where their sly calls behind could be with significant value. But they only had to call 13,000 into a 75,000 pot. You'd call 16, that. You should be calling that. 16. But
even if you have only got a jack,
called it with much worse odds.
Yeah. So what? You 16 into 75. You're talking like 5, just under like 4.6 to 1 or something. It's
I know the action's changed, so the risk has increased, but that's multi-tabling and not really seeing what's actually happened in this situation. They've taken their eye off the ball, because that's a silly call, unless they've just ignorantly assumed that you being in the big blind and originally checking that you weren't going to raise. But check raise is a good action. It was originally my plan. I just didn't like the medium call. Again, bad play. Bad play. But all the same, they're out. Go away. They've donated 3 chips. Their EV has gone to 0, and you've deliciously ate it all up. So I actually feel a lot better about this now. I could be wrong, but I feel that you could be up against. I originally said like a braggy king. But anyway, they called, and they queen 10 off. So they have got the club. That means nothing now. But yeah, they literally called tournament life on an up and down straight draw.
Straight draw.
Why they pot raised that? That was just insane. It's just silly. Well, what were they doing? Anyway,
what I would say actually, though, looking at that then, is although it seemed crazy, if you imagine what at the point where he'd put in 10k and left himself with 18k behind, the pot is, hang on, where is it? The pot is 57,000. He's got an open-ended straight draw, and he's got to put in 18,000 to win. Well, if he calls, the pot's going to go up to 74. So he needs to put in 18,000 to win 74. So actually, when you consider to hit his open-ended straight, he needs to hit any ace or any 9. No, any ace or any 9. So there's 8 outs twice. So 16 out of 45. He's got like a 1 in 3 chance of hitting his open straight. He's getting the odds. He's only getting the odds because of his huge flop bet. He's like he's priced himself in. He's like he's no way out of it now. It's like, well, I've got a 1 in 3 chance of doing it. I've got better win odds than that, at 4.5 to 1 or whatever it is. So he's kind of got to call that now, but it just shows maybe the mistake on the bet size on the flop that he made.
He's manufactured his own destiny, and the problem he's got there is it's just essentially that he's paid no attention to the SPR, and he doesn't have a hand that benefits from getting the SPR down. Yet he's proceeded to do everything in his power to do that, and that's just not clever. It's not smart. No, the hands that are likely calling you are also the hands that are most likely going to be blocking your draw. Like you are blocking their draw. You've taken one of their 9s. There's every chance you could have called that with ace king, ace jack. You're taking the others. I mean, it's
and he's got to reckon as well that the ace isn't a clean out because the hijack flat call pre-flop. Yeah. There's quite a few aces in that range as well, So yeah, strange.
And they might have been drawing dead if the club came.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's not even a chance they're drawing to the best of it. Oh well, poor mistake. We've still got a river to come.
We don't need to see that because obviously this is just for hand analysis, and no one wants to see what actually happens on the river, do they?
So the flop was jack of clubs, king of spades, 5 of spades, king of clubs. Turn was the 3 of spades, and then the river was a 2 of hearts.
A beautiful bricky 2 of hearts, the red 2 on the end. Love it. So he misses his flush, and we scoop a 74,000 pot.
Yeah, very hindsight driven, but if you'd have taken the action of calling and then jamming the turn, I've got every confidence that they would have called that. The only issue would be that you would have the third person in the pot. But that 3 of spades, for instance, is exactly the kind of card that would be jammy. Just get everything in. Because it's not much, but you can have confidence that only the hands that were already beating you are still beating you. There's no one who's playing with king 3, jack 3, that kind of thing. No one's playing with, if they've just picked up a flush draw, it's of an irrelevance. So both plays were in the end equal. So good. What Excellent. A wild play by the William, but all nice quality.
Excellent. So, all right. Well, it was definitely a borderline hand, even from the off. I think the whole way it was all borderline decisions, and that's probably something to do with the stack size. If you imagine, I know the SPR was 2.5 or whatever because there were 2 runners, but if it wasn't 2, if there wasn't 3, it wasn't a 3-way flop, then the SPR would have been in that annoying range, wouldn't it, between 3 and 6, I believe. And they do say that's one of the hardest SPRs to play. And I think that's why all the decisions become difficult, Nothing seems a definite. Like when you're really deep stacked, you just play that really cautiously all the way along. You might end up folding it. Super short stacked, you'd probably, probably would have got out of that pre-flop, or the villain would have just jammed pre-flop. But that between 3 and 6 SPR, It's just, yeah, everything's quite marginal. So yeah, interesting hand, and here we are.
Nice. Anyway, good hand, mate. Good win.
Wicked. Well, thanks for the analysis there, Tain, and we hope you enjoyed listening in at home. If you've got any thoughts or feedback, please drop it in the chat.
That's right. Take it easy. Please subscribe, like, tell your friends. Stick with us.
Take care, everyone.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks. Bye.